So I went to Prairie View A&M University, and that was the first time that I seen a Black attorney. It was a male attorney, but it was a Black attorney. I did some poli-sci classes because my major was criminal justice. At first, I wanted to minor in political science. I thought I wanted to be a DEA or go work for the FBI. Talked to my professor, briefed some cases, and basically he pulled me to the side and asked me if I ever had any interest in going to law school. At that time, I did not, but he kind of planted that seed in me, and that's kind of what started it. But after I graduated Prairie View, I actually went to work as a correctional officer at the hobby unit in TDCJ. And this was the very same prison that my mom was incarcerated in until I was 12. And so in that moment, between that moment of the professor kind of planting that seed in me and that 1 year working in the prison system, I knew at that moment that, yeah, I definitely wanted to become a lawyer.
York, D-Town, LA, NO, Florida, Mississippi, KC, MO, Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for. Chi-Town, Tennessee, Carolinas, Alabama, Oakland, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta. Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Kings Can Move On podcast. You have Big Dog Frank the Tank, aka Big Reno, in the house.
And what's up, y'all? It's your boy Lil J, aka Wood. Another edition of KCMO podcast. Like I always said at this time, if you're watching and listening, please hit the like and subscribe button. Follow, all support we can get. And you know what, dude? This is our last episode for the season.
And we say the best for last.
We did. We started the season off with an attorney, and we're gonna close it out with an attorney.
And before you start, man, because we had an attorney on, and we thought Miss Simone, we had her on first episode, and she was more of an attorney that specialized in estates. Now we get in an attorney's ass that practices family law. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead and introduce.
So without further ado, let's bring in, she practices here in the state of Texas. It's attorney Brenda DeRouen. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Jason and Frank, for having me.
Thank you. And I'll say, I thought your last name was DeRouen because attorneys always DeRouing shit. And so we trying to get some shit straight tonight. We gonna find out the truth.
Well, it's actually DeRouen because every time I'm on a case, I have you running. That didn't flow as good as I thought it was gonna go, but yeah.
That's good. I love it.
But you threw it out there like it was live, though. You threw like you had,
I thought it didn't come out like I wanted it to.
Your chest, though.
You said it with your chest. That's the most important thing, right?
That's one thing about being an attorney. You gotta say it
confidently. Like them damn prosecuting attorneys be lying their ass off, but they be saying they lie so convincingly, like they believe they own bullshit. I wonder. Okay, that's one question I will ask you. Like, I know y'all attorneys. There's a network. So I don't think it just stops with defense attorneys or prosecuting attorneys. I'm pretty sure all of y'all have some type of relationship. Do y'all ever go in there after court and talk? You ever talk to that prosecutor? You like, that was some bullshit, don't you?
Oh, of course. At the end of the day, a lot of us are colleagues. We went to law school with one another. Maybe we competed with one another. And we see people all the time in court. So just because I have a case with one attorney with one particular client doesn't mean that I'm never going to see them again. So we always, well, not always, but most of the time we do have conversations after the case is over, just either laughing or having learning conversations about, the practice of law.
What about
learning
judges?
Conversations.
What about judges? Because one thing that I just really couldn't stand the last time I was in court years and years ago, I can remember the attorney. It was a civil thing, and I can remember the attorney and the judge, the prosecuting attorney, and the judge just sitting there holding conversations and laughing like they're old friends, which made me feel like, how can I even get a fair trial if y'all all buddy, hey, what's going on, and blah blah blah, and laughing and joking. I didn't appreciate that.
And I listen, I'm with you on that because, before I became an attorney, I did go through a legal proceeding in which I had to go before a judge. And before I became an attorney, that was my hiccup with my attorney. I seen her kikiing and hi-hi with the prosecutor, and it made me feel like maybe you're not, representing me or doing what you need to do in my best interest, because why are y'all friends, right? But at the end of the day, you have to hire an attorney that you trust, and you do have to understand that the legal community is a very small community, and just because I'm laughing with someone or just because I'm joking with someone doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to advocate for your case. Again, we see each other all the time. There's no reason for us to be beefed up with each other all the time. However, I think it is important for attorneys to be mindful of what they're presenting in front of the court so that their clients don't feel that way. So it's very important for me to not look too friendly in court with opposing counsel.
Okay, so let's do this before we really dig in. Let's kind of talk about your background, Brenda. So I'm on your website and I see you have a slew of like awards and accreditations. I see that you was just named top 40 under 40 National Trial Lawyers Association in 2023. So how long have you been practicing law, and what made you get into it in the first place?
Yes. So I graduated law school in 2014. I was I started off working into politics. Then in 2018, I went ahead to get my license. So I've been practicing since 2018. What is that? 5 years?
Yeah. And
what made you even get into law? What?
You want the real story, or you want the
So this,
I'm an attorney. I'm an attorney, so let me give you the attorney answer.
This is an uncut podcast now, so we want real.
So I have a very unique background. I do not come from a family of scholars. In fact, I am the first person in my family to graduate college, as well as to go to law school, as well as to start my own business. And so my family, a lot of them are criminals. They've been to prison before. They've been in the system. In fact, my mom was incarcerated until I was 12 years old. And so I always knew that I wanted to do something within the criminal justice system. I didn't know that it was going to be an attorney. In fact, that was not even on my radar. I was actually a really good basketball player, and my goal was just to go to college to hoop and go to the WNBA, believe it or not. However, I got pregnant when I was 17. All opportunities for me to get scholarship to go to college kind of got taken away from me. However, I was very bright. I never depended on basketball to take me anywhere. And so I was able to get scholarship to Prairie View A&M University.
Oh, PV.
You know.
my niece goes down there.
Congratulations to her. She's going to be a very productive Panther.
Yeah.
And so I went to Prairie View A&M University, and that was the first time that I seen a Black attorney. It was a male attorney, but it was a Black attorney. I did some poli-sci classes because my major was criminal justice. At first, I wanted to minor in political science. I thought I wanted to be a DEA or go work for the FBI. Talked to my professor, briefed some cases, and basically he pulled me to the side and asked me if I ever had any interest in going to law school. At that time, I did not, but he kind of planted that seed in me, and that's kind of what started it. But after I graduated Prairie View, I actually went to work as a correctional officer at the hobby unit in TDCJ. And this was the very same prison that my mom was incarcerated in until I was 12. And so in that moment, between that moment of the professor kind of planting that seed in me and that 1 year working in the prison system, I knew at that moment that, yeah, I definitely wanted to become a lawyer.
So wait a minute. You went from being a police officer to being in the politics, working for the government. to an attorney. Could you just not get into the damn WNBA? To something that's legitimate?
I know, right?
It's all good. It's all good. I'm glad you ain't no police officer no more.
Well, I was never a police officer. I was a correctional officer, to be fair.
That's police. That's police.
The po-po.
Yeah, that's police. So.
She was like the big boss man on the female version. You remember?
Yeah.
Listen.
From the wrestling. Yeah. So yeah, political, correctional, and now family law, which is an interesting landing spot. Because you still could have went any variety of ways, right? You know, criminal law, you know, and you chose family law because that just, you felt there was a need for you there, or what?
I didn't choose family law. Family law chose me.
Really?
So again, I always had a passion. To this day, I still have a passion for criminal justice reform. I think any lawyer, especially a Black lawyer, has to have a heart for criminal justice reform. If you've known anything or had family incarcerated or experienced the criminal justice system, it's just something that's in me. Speaking of criminal justice, the reason I got into family law is I actually had got arrested for child endangerment while I was studying for the bar exam. My son was very young at the time. I had just graduated law school, actually, and I had basically, my son was asleep. And I forgot like one of my law books because I was studying for the bar exam. I stayed about 8 minutes away from the law school, did not want to wake him up. My son is the type of child, to this day, he will never wake up from a nap nor sleep. And so at that moment, I thought it was a great idea to just go to the school to get my book so that I can continue studying for the night. Thank God for cameras. I went to the school, got my book, came right back, maybe 15 minutes, and police were surrounding my apartment. For whatever reason, my son had woke up from his sleep that night and he was looking for me. He had never been left home alone by himself. And my neighbor decided at that moment that she wanted to call the police. And so in that moment, I got arrested. I was charged with felony child endangerment. And as you can imagine, I'm a broke law student. I don't have the money for a criminal defense attorney. And so at this time, not only do I have to study for the bar exam, but I have to study to represent myself in the family division of my case, because when you get charged with child endangerment, there's two cases. There's a felony case, which is criminal, and then CPS gets involved. And so now you have a civil case. So family law chose me. I was successful in both cases, obviously, and just going through that system kind of made me feel like this is where I can be an advocate for parents and mothers and just people going through that particular system.
Wow. So did they, in a situation like that, did they attempt or did they take your kid away from you for a day, for some time?
So my son was temporarily, so there was a protective order against me, meaning I could not see my son, talk to my son, be around my son for, I believe it was 30 or 60 days. I don't remember. So yeah, there was a moment they attempted to have me temporarily place my son with someone else. Learning the law and knowing the law, I objected to that and represented myself where needed, so that would not happen. But no one around me who knew me could say anything bad about me as a mother. And so, like I said, I was able to kind of get that case closed, both cases closed. And yeah, it was very traumatic for me, to say the least.
You know, and go ahead, Jane. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so since you've been through the system as a defendant, and now you're actually an attorney, I imagine you have a different kind of outlook on the way things go. Like, I'm sure the system is designed to protect the children, right? That's their job, right? But sometimes it seems as though they go way beyond what's reasonable, right? Because it's like they would go to all this trouble to try to take your child and all this and prosecute you over something that seems to be just a minor infraction versus, you know, you weren't beating your kids with, you know, boards and you know, abusing. So my question is, what did that make you think about the system? Did you think it was like that's how it works, or you think that's like that's not right?
One, it made me realize, listen, you cannot fight the system by yourself. Mind you, I was a law school graduate. The same law that my defense attorney used to defend me was the same law that I tried to use. So the first time that I went to a hearing, actually, I made my arguments on why there shouldn't have been a protective order in place, why my son did not need to be placed with anyone else, you know, all the arguments that, you know, an attorney could possibly make. However, because I was unrepresented, the judge did not want to hear anything that I had to say, nor did the prosecutor. And so once I lawyered up, I had to pay a significant amount of money for an attorney. Once I lawyered up, she went to court. She made the very same arguments using the very same law, and the protective order was lifted. So one, never, I've learned to never for without an attorney. You cannot advocate for yourself. They just simply will not listen. And then two, you know, knowing the law, you're able to kind of be strategic with the law, right? The law is slow, the process is slow. And so I do understand the fear of going into a courthouse, the fear of the unknown. And kind of like Frank said earlier, like y'all all friends. I don't trust y'all like with my case. But once you know the system as an attorney, it's my obligation to walk people through and to make sure they truly understand what they're getting themselves into so that I can alleviate some of that fear. So if you're coming to me as a client, I can say, listen, this is the process. This is what's about to happen. I know it doesn't feel good. I know it doesn't look good, but if you follow this strategy, we have a long goal. We don't have we may have short goals and they're probably not going to be what you like, but what goal, and if you trust me, I can get you to that end goal, because I've been through it before, and I, you know, just want to make sure that people feel heard and feel safe with my representation.
Well, you know, and that's one of the challenges that I have, and I ain't even gonna say challenges. That's one of the problems that I have with the justice system, the quote unquote justice system, because like you said, you went in there unrepresented, but you knew what the hell you were talking about, right? They didn't want to hear anything that you had to say, and that's not fair. Especially if those 4 sheets of paper that they call the Constitution, they say that everyone has a right to a fair and meaningful hearing. That's not the case. Not the case. For them to say that, I mean, if for you to have that, they want you to lawyer up. They want you to have somebody that's like them. Whereas if I know how to change my oil, and I show a mechanic, hey, you know what, my car needs an oil change, and here's the type of oil it takes. A mechanic shouldn't look at me and be like, I know what kind of oil this takes. I've been changing Malibus my whole life. Well, sir, I've changed Malibus for the last 5 years. I've changed oil on Malibus for the past 5 years. That doesn't make me just not as knowledgeable as you. That just makes me saying that I don't have a mechanic. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a person that happens to know how to change oil. Just so why is that? That is the problem that I have with these arrogant ass judges and prosecutors.
It is a problem, and it's business as usual until you have someone to shake up the system. And if you put me in court, I am the person who will shake up the system, because it's not business as usual for me. And you're absolutely right. We do have a problem in our legal system, in our judiciary system, where people are not given a equal shot at representation, whether it's, you know, them representing themselves, whether it's them, you know, getting a court appointed attorney. It's not equal. But the problem is not necessarily the system itself. It's, you know, who we elect as judges. I think we put people in these positions to make these decisions, not necessarily knowing what their reputation in the legal community is. So when it's time to vote for judges, I think it's very important for people to reach out to lawyers who actually practice in those courtrooms to really get an understanding of who they're voting for and what type of judges they're putting on the bench. Because once they're there, I mean, we just kind of have to deal with it. So to be fair, that judge who was on my case did not get reelected. But there are some judges who are very compassionate, who will listen to both parties and make a decision based on the arguments that are presented to them at the time, as opposed to whether someone is represented or not. And those are the type of people who are change makers and who are making the system a lot more fair to people like myself and you and others who go before those benches.
Okay. So Brenda, I want to get into some family law.
Yes.
And I'm gonna throw some out there. I want your opinion on it. So, I have a personal opinion that I think the system is biased against the non-custodial parent, whether it's a female or a male. What's your opinion on that, first of all?
I agree.
Okay, so, and I know it's state by state, you know, the laws are state by state. One of my biggest gripes is, so clearly I'm a parent, like we talked about, and I'm not custodial. So, you know, I've been paying child support for years, whatever. But I've never understood why, when it comes to factoring in how much you should pay, it's always based on the non-custodial parent's income. It's never based on the other parent's income, the need of the child. It's always like, how much you make, here's what you're gonna give up. I don't understand why this exists so long and why that is. That's, to me, it's dumb. It's not fair.
So if we're talking child support in the state of Texas, I can't speak for other states. I can use other states kind of as a measure, but California, for example, will use both parties' incomes, right, to determine how much child support should be paid. In the state of Texas, we have what we call statutory guidelines. And the theory behind that is this amount is going to be based on all these statistics of how much it costs to raise a child, right? They look at the non-custodial parent's income and say, hey, we're going to, whatever you make for the first child is 20% of whatever your net income is. We don't care how much you make, how much or how little, which is, in my opinion, fair, because we had the case with Chris Brown, right? Multi-millionaire, right? The max amount of child support at the time that he was paying was $1,840. That was the max. Didn't matter how much money he made. That is the statutory guideline based on the minimum needs of a child. Now, there are situations where, like, why does it cost you this much to take care of a child? But my question to you would be, how much money do you spend per month on your child based on your income? Is it more or less than 20% of your income, of your take-home pay?
You mean outside of what was taking?
No, take everything that you do for your kids, and I want to know what percent of your income is going towards your children. Is it 20%? Is it more? Is it less?
It's probably more because they're expensive. And
kids are expensive.
they are expensive. And like I said, I never like put up a fight against the whole fact of supporting your child, whether it's through child support or mutual agreement between the parents. I've just been in a situation where I'm like, every time we go in for a review, look at my income. Oh, you made more money. Guess what? You take more
Fuck
money.
You, pay me. That's what it is.
And I'm like, okay, what is she making? I mean, honestly, yeah, it's.
Do you guys have a 50-50 schedule?
No.
Do you know how much her rent is?
How much her what?
Her rent is?
No, I mean,
a mortgage.
So she's married. And
do you know how much her light bill is? Do you know how much her grocery bill is per month? If you yourself say you spend more than 20% of your income, remember, this is based on and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just making the argument, right? This 20%, 25%, depending on how many children you have, is based on the minimum needs of your child, like the minimum, the bare minimum, right? And the courts could go up if the needs are greater than that. So when non-custodial parents tell me, well, how much is she making? And why we're not looking at her income, we could, but think about your schedule. She has this child a majority of the time. And I'm not talking about people who have 50-50 schedules, because that's a, another conversation. But the cost of raising a child is expensive. And for people using or spending 20% of their income to raise their kids, I have a problem with that.
So let's talk about the 50-50. I don't have that. So is that different as far as, hey, look at the
So let's start with the basic idea and theory that I believe our system is messed up. I believe our system needs to be changed. I believe that more fathers need to advocate in Austin for parental rights and non-custodial parents, right? In Texas, 50-50 does not necessarily mean no child support. What the court could try to do is look at both parents' income and do an offset. So if you and I have a child and we do a 50-50 schedule, we look at your income, we could look at my income, and then we say whoever makes the most will pay the difference. Or the parties can agree to say nobody pays any child support, but it doesn't necessarily mean no child support. I'm in the belief that, hey, if it's 50-50, should nobody pay child support. That's my belief. You take care of the child when the child is with you. I take care of the child when the child is with me. That's my belief. But the court system doesn't agree with my belief.
But you know what? And I'm in Missouri, and when me and my second wife, when we split up and we divorced, she made significantly more than I did at that time, and we did a 50-50 split, but she didn't want child support, and I, even though she made more, I didn't want it either, and we actually lived 4 minutes away from each other, and so our daughter is just.
Right.
I spend just as much time with her when I was married to her than now that we're divorced. I still spend the same amount of time, and now she lives with me, and I'm still not going to go to court and be like, okay, my daughter lives with me now, so I need to petition the court for money. I just don't feel like the courts need to be involved in it.
So, and we love people like you, because remember, the court system is for parents who cannot figure it out on their own. They need somebody to kind of play referee for them, right? So you don't have to worry about what the court is or is not going to do, because you're able to kind of co-parent with the mother of your children. It does not involve the court system. But unfortunately, for a lot of parents, they do need the court to kind of play referee. I also think it's important for attorneys, when we talk about that change, I think it's important for attorneys to challenge the status quo. Why can't we start off with a 50-50 schedule? Why must we start off with the standard possession order? A lot of times 50-50 won't work if parents are, living too far apart. But if parents are in close proximity, I always say, let's do 50-50. Why not?
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I will ask you, and when you said challenge, it's this great segue. So one of the things I will ask you with your case that you had those years ago, and with your clients, why didn't you challenge jurisdiction from the jump? And what would you say to a client, a dad that will come to you and be like, hey, I got this order. Before we even go to talk about this case, I want to challenge jurisdiction. I want to challenge subject matter. I want to challenge in personam. I want to challenge every fucking jurisdiction there is. I need to challenge that, because I don't feel like a court has has authority over me.
Okay. So if someone comes to me saying that they don't believe, or they make statements that they don't believe that the district court has jurisdiction over them, then we would actually challenge it. But remember, subject matter is just, hey, does this court cover this law, right? Is this a family law court? Does this court have the authority to handle custody cases, right? That's number one. Most of the time the answer is yes, because it's just going to go to that court anyway.
But they have to
is,
have in personam jurisdiction in order to have subject matter jurisdiction. Am I right?
Right. So let me get to number two.
All right.
In persona jurisdiction means you did something in the state that allowed the state to get jurisdiction over you. So for my particular cases, either you're living in this jurisdiction, you're living within this county, or two, if you're a father and you're in another state, you had some type of sexual activity in the state of Texas that helped conceive this child. right? That is how we get in persona jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction over a person who is not in the county, in the district, in the state, whatever you have. So
but that's an element of a crime. I mean, there's supposed to be what, 3 or 5 elements of a crime. There's supposed to be 5 elements of a crime, and then they have to be 3 have to be proven or some shit like that.
I'm in civil court. I'm not in a criminal court.
But
but
okay,
for criminal court, there's different elements to different things. So larceny, theft, right? The unlawful taking and carrying away of another person's personal property with the intent to deprive, right? Those are the elements. You have to prove all of those elements beyond a reasonable doubt. So when we talk about jurisdiction, for me, I'm a civil law attorney. I'm not a criminal defense attorney. We think about 2 things: subject matter and in persona jurisdiction. Like, did you do something in this state that gives this court jurisdiction over you? Those are the only 2 things that I'm considering.
But okay, and I've been listening to a gentleman for years, and Jason, I've talked to you about it. Like I said, I've had 5 traffic tickets, and I've had 3 of them removed because I fought jurisdiction. The only reason I didn't have the other 2 removed was because I was supposed to start a job that next week, and they continued that court. The courts continued the court case 7 times. So, because every time I went in there and challenged jurisdiction, and they were like, "We're going to continue it. We're going to continue it." So I just couldn't have them continue it anymore. But in order for them, but one of the things that I have learned over the years is going there and ask the courts, just because I'm physically in the state of ABC, Texas, Missouri, where is the evidence that law applies to me, that those laws apply to me? Where is the evidence? Because a lot of what a prosecutor won't do, or a county clerk or whatever, when they file those charges, they don't show that element of jurisdiction. They don't prove that. And if that's part of evidence, if there's evidence on how those laws apply to me in the first place, you got for you to tell me that I broke the law, you have to tell me how that law applies to me in the first place, even though I'm physically there. And so it's all based off these 4 sheets of paper that they call a constitution. I didn't sign that contract.
But
you didn't sign that contract.
Criminal law or civil law?
Both, in both situations. And
are you referring to yourself as you're not a citizen of the United States? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm saying that the courts have to prove that. I'm saying that the courts have to prove that. And if they didn't prove that from the jump when they filed it, then that should be thrown out. Then the case should be thrown out. But what judges don't want, and what prosecutors don't want to do, they don't want to throw that out. But if those elements have to be shown before that is filed, then why am I here? And if that evidence has not been shown.
Yeah,
so your argument,
that smile she gave when you said okay.
I heard her say, "Oh,
exactly why lawyers coming with no
bring your ass in the court if you want to," saying some shit like that. But I'm saying
okay.
I've won.
I think you make
cases.
I think you make a valid argument. I think jurisdiction is a way to get out of certain cases. However, I think that people are misguided in, what jurisdiction means and whether or not the court can have the authority to hear their cases. I think that a lot of times people make these arguments before the court, and because it's reset, sometimes the case does get dismissed, and because it is dismissed, they think that, it's dismissed because they didn't have jurisdiction. Maybe they were just tired of your case. Maybe they were tired of you. Maybe they just wanted to be done. Maybe they didn't have jurisdiction. But I think that, jurisdiction is a thing. But you can't just say, I'm not a citizen. I never signed the Constitution. I don't have a Social Security number and all that other stuff to get out of the ticket.
And I truly just believe on traffic. Traffic is bullshit. I think that we need rules. I just don't think we need rulers like those people that sit up on high on that podium and wear black dresses. I don't think we need them. But that's my opinion.
He's talking about.
I know you can't elaborate on that, Brenda, but I can. I don't like y'all. Y'all freaking tyrants. Y'all don't listen to anyone. Y'all have your own mind set up on things, and that's very frustrating to a common person like myself who wants to go in there and get something fair. If y'all are going to say that this is a fair and meaningful trial or a fair and meaningful hearing, make it fair. Don't make it one-sided is all I'm saying. And I shouldn't have to pay Miss Brenda $5,000 to prove that.
So Brenda, if you haven't really followed our pod, sometimes he goes on rants with no question behind it. It's just a
That's
tangent.
all right. Get your frustrations out. I'm a part of the system, and I want to hear your frustrations. Who knows? One day I might be a judge and order a child.
Hell. Cut it off, Jay. Cut it off.
Asking my staff attorney, do we have jurisdiction over Mr. Frank? Because I already know he's coming here with the shit.
You know he about to come challenge some shit. You know he's gonna have about a fight.
Mr. Frank, have a seat. Have a seat, Mr. Frank.
That's right. Challenge.
I'm going to hear your case class because I already know.
Yeah, you know it. You know it. Like, oh, push him to the side because you know jurisdiction must be proven. Prosecutor Amy, did you prove jurisdiction before Mr. Frank come in here? Oh, throw that shit out. Throw that shit out.
Like they say, take several seats, sir. Take several seats. Because you ain't going nowhere. You got to get this business. But I do have a question.
That's something you want to do?
I have a question.
Do you want to be a judge?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Please don't. Yeah.
I have no interest at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, state judges, they have term limits, right? They don't go forever like Supreme, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank God. But I was gonna ask you, so family law, I would imagine, is full of drama just because of the area of expertise, right? And so for you, dealing with that and dealing with contentious divorces and child support and custody battles, do you ever have issues managing your emotions with dealing with these cases?
Yes, family law is all emotion, actually. You know, you're talking divorce, you're talking somebody losing their child, you're talking about somebody not getting visitation with their child, you're talking, you know, finances, you're talking about somebody losing their house, losing their portion of their retirement. So it is all emotion. And sometimes when you're representing somebody, you have to understand, when I'm in a case, I'm not in a case for 2 weeks, right? Most of my cases are going to be on my docket a minimum of 6 months up to 2 or 3 years, just depending on how complex the case is. And so these people become like family to me. I see the BS that they deal with. I see the tactics that opposing counsel tries to use. I see the stories and lies that are told in court. And so sometimes, a lot of times, it can become personal, and you know, you have a problem with balancing your emotions. But the way to do that is to realize, you know what? I'm here to argue the facts, and I'm here to argue the law. So whatever drama y'all got going on, y'all continue that drama, bring me the facts and bring me the evidence. And if you can do that, I can argue the law. I'm not going to get in between what y'all got going on because I didn't put you in a situation, right? And so that's how I've been able to navigate my emotions. If you cannot bring me evidence of what he said or what she said or what was done, I don't want to hear it, because I can't go before a judge and say, well, she said that he did with no evidence. Right? So, you know, that's how I, you know, try to minimize the emotions, but sometimes it comes, like, you know, it gets there. I have 2 cases right now that I am highly invested in. There's one case where my client, he's a new father, and mom doesn't want him to have much time with their child, especially with that argument, oh, he's a new father, he doesn't know what to do with the child. My argument to that is, you are a new mom, right? Somebody had to teach you, and just like you had to learn, this person has to learn. And then I have another case where I represent wife, and husband is a real bully. He's tried to bully me. You know, he's been very disrespectful and nasty in emails and messages. And I have a hearing tomorrow where I have to present all those nasty emails, and you know, there is now an attack on me because I asked the court to intervene before I responded like a nigga, right? And the court did not want to intervene. And so, if this is how we're going to talk with one another, let's talk. And now he with it. So you met me with that energy, I tried to let it go, and now I'm gonna meet you with that energy. So those are cases where you kind of have to just pick your battles. But yeah, it's very emotional.
And that's a paper trail right there. Emails and all that. Yeah. That's a paper trail. So he's not that smart. But
have you ever been in a situation where you argued the facts and argued the law you knew this stuff was right, but you were still, or your client was still, didn't come out in their favor?
Yep. And
Mhm.
those are the worst cases. Um, one of my first custody cases, I had a woman who was putting herself through school, and it was a struggle time for her, right? And
Mhm.
dad decided at that time he was going to file a custody case. And I saw myself in her. I was like, man, when I was in law school, I remember the struggles and sacrifices I made, for my son. And so we argued, this was a temporary situation. She still showed up to school. She was still involved. Her kids were still doing well in school. But because she didn't have enough time during that period of her life, dad got custody, and I was pissed. I was pissed because I saw myself in her. I was like, well, hadn't I put myself through law school, I wouldn't be able to be living this life that I'm living, and nor would he, right? And so there are times where you argue facts, you argue the law, and you lose. And sometimes you lose bad. And it's not like losing people's money who can, get it back. You're losing people's children, or you're
Mhm.
losing people's houses, or you're losing people's retirement accounts. These are real things. And so you don't get to sleep well at night a lot of times.
Well, what do you do in a situation? What is one? I have a family member that her boyfriend is going through a situation. Young daddy, mom doesn't want him to see his kids. I think he has one or two. I can't remember, but doesn't want to see him. She every time he tries to go and do something, she blocks it. It's a typical situation. You know, spiteful situation. But he's living maybe at or right below the poverty level, to where he can't afford to do an attorney. What does a dad do? What does a mom do in that situation like that?
So if you're in a situation where you cannot afford legal services, I would say save up some money to at least have a consultation with an attorney.
Hmm.
Um, my consultations are a little bit more expensive than most people, not out of reach, but a little bit more expensive. And the reason why is I don't bring in people to just tell them what I can do for them. I tell them what I can do and what they can do for themselves. So it's like a strategic meeting. Like, I'm just to give you the game. This is what you need to file. This is how you need to handle this case. Like, this is a strategy on how to handle your case. So regardless of if you retain my services or not, this is what needs to happen, right? You might not be able to afford the thousands of dollars it costs to obtain me, but now you have a strategy on how to move forward. So if you can, pay for a consultation with an attorney who's going to provide you a case strategy. If you can't
Okay.
afford to do that, then I recommend going to texaslawhelp.org and reading up on, the different things that you can file. Look at the Texas Family Code. You can Google search, whatever issue you think you have, Google search that within the Texas Family Code and read the code and try to understand it as best as you can. Also, there are attorneys who do limited scope representation. So maybe you can't afford full scope representation. Maybe you just need to draft your pleadings for you. Maybe you just need somebody to appear at a hearing for you. Nitpick and what is it, a la carte your attorney and try to do what you can, but when you can't, have somebody come in and represent you where you can.
That's interesting because I never heard of limited scope representation. That's very interesting.
Yep.
Hmm.
So, what was my question? So, being in the system, right, you see it from inside out, and some of the failings of our system that's really hurting our people. Do you at any time, and you and your network of attorneys, do you guys like lobby or push for any kind of reform or changes to the system at all?
We do. So we have a Houston Family Lawyers group that consists of, family law attorneys. I'm a member of the family law section of the State Bar of Texas. I'm an AKA. I'm in Jack and Jill legislative committee. Like, I think we all do something that helps within our area of practice. My goal is father rights. I love representing men. I love making sure that their rights are protected. And so any opportunity that I get to just kind of explain, like being in family court, what it's like representing a man, I will do that. We have Family Law Day at the Capitol where we voice our concerns. And, you know, there are many opportunities and ways that we get involved within our practice areas. So yeah, we do that actually.
Would you say there are Republicans or Democrats that are more in favor of better laws for dads?
To be fair, I really don't care what party line you're on when it comes to family law. The reason why is because I've had Republican judges that are like, you know what? They are pro-fathers, right? And they are by the book, and they're going to give you a fair ruling, right? And then we have some Democratic judges who don't know the law, who are status quo, give mama all the rights, you know, and that's just who they are. So I really don't care where you are in the party lines. What I care about is experience and your ability to think outside of the box when it comes to a family law judge. That's what I want. Someone who knows the law, someone who can think outside the box, and someone who's going to listen to both sides.
So you said you're pro father and you lean that way. What's
when I say let me clarify. Let me say, well, before I say that, pro-father means I believe in men having their equal rights as it relates to their children. Not that I will not represent women, not that I think all men should have custody, but I think that men are not treated as fairly in the family law system. And so when I represent men, I always want to advocate for that, because that is my opportunity to make change in the legal system.
Well, okay. Thank you for clarifying. We don't want to get misquoted here. We want to make sure you have equal representation. But I do want to know why, or was there something in your past, or what gives you a soft spot? Well, maybe a soft spot, but what is it about dads that you think really they need advocates for? Is it something that you've seen, or is just, what is it?
I think it's just a soft spot, right? I grew up with a form of a two-parent household. So I was raised by my grandparents. So I had my grandfather and my grandmother, a form of a two-parent household. I didn't necessarily have my father. My son wasn't raised in a two-parent household. So when I see fathers coming in and wanting to be a part of their child's lives, like really fighting for that and spending the money for that, I'm like, why not? Like, why can't this man see his child? Why can't he have the same rights as you? Like, what is your problem? Like, what is the issue, right? And so I guess I just have I've never represented a bad father. I've never represented a man who didn't deserve more time with his child. Like, if a man is coming to me and paying me the money to get them equal rights, like, those are good people. I've never represented a bad day.
You know what, Frank? I'm glad we had a female attorney come in with this opinion, because we're two dads. We have our opinions, and they're biased, of course, because we're men. And we often get woman bashing, that kind of mama bashing, whatever. But it's just, it is refreshing to hear a woman's opinion, a woman's perspective on the whole dad versus mom deal, because it's I agree with you, because I'm biased, but I agree.
How do you prevent a bitter situation? How would you, as an attorney, how would you tell that your client, whether it be a male or a female, hey, you know what, let's try to work with the other parent before we go to court for 6 months,
Get that.
12 months.
Wrong. I don't want to hear it. Bye.
Yeah. Shut up. Why? What's the matter? You deep or something? Shut up. How do you do that?
So that's what most of my cases, and I commend Harris County and Fort Bend County for their requirement, right? There is a requirement of mediation prior to a temporary orders hearing and prior to a final orders hearing, right? Mediation is an informal opportunity for parents and spouses to kind of resolve their matters outside of court before the judge will make a determination on what will happen, right? So 80% of my cases are going to resolve themselves, if not more, are going to resolve themselves outside of court. However, you got to think of timing, right? If you come to me and you ain't seen your child, I don't have time to be trying to mediate and get you more time. You've already tried to do that, right? So it just depends on timing. But it is important for parents to work together to try to resolve their issues. One, you're going to save money. 2, you're not going to have a judge who doesn't know anything about you. Frank, I don't know how old you are. Jason, I don't know how old you are, but you okay. You have a judge who is literally going to listen to your case, you know, no more than, you know, if it's a temporary order, it's probably 2 hours. If it's a final trial, just really depends. But they are going to make a decision, a long-term decision based on your life, your relationship with your child. You are the better person to determine what is in the best interest of your child. So it's always important to try to work it out outside of court if you can. You might need a little guidance from an attorney, and you might need the support of the court system, but if you can work it out, you should. And I always tell my clients, listen, I'm here now, but once this case is over with, I'm gone. You're gonna have to still co-parent with this person that you hate, that you had me tear down on the stand. You still got to deal with them. I don't. So, right. I mean, you do what you got to do, but at the end of the day, you got to figure it out.
Being a young Black woman that's such as yourself, as far as clientele, do you try to be diverse in your clientele, or do you find yourself certain ethnicities, black men or Black women, coming to you more?
Actually, I have a very diverse clientele. I think because my prices, and 2, because me in court and they see me on social media and they see me advocating for my clients. And when you see quality representation, you want quality. So I think at first it started off, you know, because it was my network, right? My network was full of people who looked like me, and that's who allowed me to represent them. But now I have a very diverse profile, and I'm actually very proud of that, because it allows me creativity and flexibility to kind of understand, you know, the different ways of parenting and different creative parenting plans that I can put in place for different families, just based on the different cultures and people that I'm able to represent.
We're gonna throw one more question before we let you go. But so without getting into, I don't know if you're single, married, whatever, but being in family law, how has that affected how you manage relationships?
And how you and if you ain't single, if you're single, do you date and look at that man and be like, he ain't right. He ain't right.
It's bad. To be honest, it's bad. I don't in this moment, we're gonna speak in this moment. In this moment, today, May 30th of 2023, I just do not believe in marriage. I do not believe that is sustainable long term in this generation.
In this age, yeah.
And this, I just do not. First of all, because I've made this post the other day, actually. I believe that marriage is a biblical thing, it's religious. And I think we've gotten away from that. That was the purpose, in my opinion, of marriage. And now people get in, people get out. And so that foundation to me is already not there in a lot of people. And then 2, I'm good. I've seen too many bad marriages. I see it all the time. I see how people act when they're going through divorce. I see how shady people can become, and it's just ugly. Like, if I do get married today, May 30th, 2023, I do not foresee that for myself. But if I do ever get married, I definitely want a solid prenuptial agreement. So if you decide to go your way and I decide to go my way, we're not spending money on attorney fees. We don't have to fight about who get in the house, the dog, the car. We don't have to worry about none of that.
Okay, I would think
so. It's jaded me. To answer, it's definitely jaded.
A little bit, just a little.
A lot of it.
I know that's right.
Oh my God, I can't wait to get married. This is gonna be great. I'm okay for an Oprah and Stedman type situation.
I know that's right. That's right. Marriage ain't about love anyway. It's about it's a contract. Well, that's what it's originally supposed to be. It's supposed to be a contract.
What they say is institution, and you gotta be bound by contracts. Yeah, that sounds like some bad deal right there. But I do want to say thank you, Brenda, for coming on. It was a great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we do appreciate you coming on. It's a little while to get you, but Right.
That's schedule.
I get it.
I appreciate it.
Very busy, very busy.
Look, I have a hearing. I have to go pick up this for a hearing. I got a whole hearing tomorrow.
Oh Lord, I pray.
We appreciate you coming in, and we know that your time is valuable. That's real talk.
We do appreciate the conversation. It's great information. We appreciate it. Before we get out of here, we do want to just make a little acknowledgement to our business partner, our dear friend, our brother, Carl Cambrick. Last night lost his youngest brother to leukemia. And we want to say rest well, John Cambrick, and to the Cambrick family. Love y'all. We're praying for y'all, and condolences.
You know, me to add on that, man, Mom and Daddy Cambrick, I've known them since, me and Carl was in 7th grade together. They've always been a sweet, sweet family. We used to call Daddy Cambrick Ren from NWA because he looked just like him, and he was silent. He looked like he would be silent but deadly insulted. And Mama Cambrick, just the sweetest lady that you can meet. And I can remember going over there and seeing, hanging out with Carl, and he had 2 little brothers, Harold and John. John was the baby. And I can remember how John would be so spoiled. He was just like he was spoiled. He had that baby spoil. And, but good young kid, man. And now he was a good adult. He went to the military for a while, and then he went on a bit to be an adult and live his life. And unfortunately, he lost it a little earlier than a lot of us would want him to. But Mom and Daddy Cambrick, John or Harold, Carl, John's kids, and his extended family, my prayers are with y'all. Our prayers, the Kings Can Move On prayers, are with y'all. We ask that you stay strong and keep the faith, keep believing in God, because God, nothing but God will get you through it. Much love to y'all.
I concur. So with that, this is, again, like I said, our final one of the season. So we do want to give that a little shout out. We want to thank you, Attorney DeRouen. We got Frank the Tank, and I'm Lil J, of course, y'all. You know what it is. Keep moving on, y'all. We out.
See y'all next season.
New York, D-Town, LA, NO, Florida, Mississippi, KC, MO, Show 'em what you stand for. Chi-Town, Tennessee, Carolinas, Alabama, Oakland, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta. Show 'em what you stand for.